And we're back.
Yay!
Welcome back to the AutoAuthorities Podcast. This is part 2, Mythbusters Carfax part 2. We have had a lot to talk about. We're even going to give you a little bonus today. We're going to talk about not only the Carfax, but we're going to talk about this thing called AutoCheck, which you may not know about. So I just want to welcome everybody. My name is Jay Grossman. I'm the founder and CEO of iAutoAgent. We are real estate agents for cars. We handle every aspect of selling your car, but also buying your car. So you don't have to. And this is Mr. David Marks with
Quality Auto STL.
Trusted services with no surprises. Hey, I just want to thank everybody. We have just been having just so many people coming to us, excited to listen to our podcast. We talk about buying, selling cars, raw and uncut, and we have a big show for you today. If you're just joining us, we're going to be talking about the Carfax, how to look out for the things on Carfax. We're going to talk about this thing called AutoCheck. We're going to just be talking about a lot of things that could potentially keep you from making a $20,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 mistake. Are you ready to do this, Mr. David Marks?
Absolutely.
Have you ever felt like you were taken for a ride when buying, selling, or repairing your car? Well, not anymore. I'm Jay.
And I'm Dave.
And this is the podcast that tells you what to watch out for, whether you're buying, selling,
Or repairing your car.
With 47 years of automotive experience, we are the Automotive Authorities. This podcast is sponsored by iAutoAgent. We're real estate agents for cars.
And Quality Auto STL. Trusted services with no surprises.
Boom.
Booyah!
If you are just joining us, we are talking about Mythbusters Carfax Part 2. And we are hitting all kinds of very valuable points when you are buying a car on things to look for on Carfax. And we're going to be talking about this little thing called AutoCheck. Yeah, it's Carfax's nemesis. And I bet a lot of people don't know that that's available. And we're going to talk about the positives and negatives of each of them and how to really sift through this car buying process. Before we get started, I wanted to thank our sponsors, iAutoAgent.com. We are real estate agents for cars. We handle selling the car for you at no cost to you. We handle every aspect of the sale to keep you focused on your family, your business, and then we help you buy cars nationwide so you don't have to navigate through that crazy buying process, and especially now. And then this is Mr. David Marks with Quality Auto STL. Trusted services with no surprises, the best in the business. And all of you that are watching this on YouTube, please click the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so be notified anytime that we have a podcast coming to you. And then we're on 19 other different channels such as iTunes and Pandora and Amazon. But also, if you wanted to watch this live every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock, we're going live on our Facebook called the Auto Authorities Podcast. You can watch our beautiful faces and you can listen to us live. And just click the join group button on Facebook. And then Mr. David Marks, I think we have a special gift for our listeners, for all those that are new to the Auto Authorities Podcast. Do you want to share that with them?
Absolutely. It's our free ebook.
Oh my God!
Nonsense.
Free?
Absolutely.
How did they do it, Dave? How did they get the free ebook? And what is it?
Well, all they have to do is text the word car to 57838, and they'll get our free ebook so that in the event that they don't want to use iAutoAgent, they can buy a car with no nonsense. Because who likes sitting at a dealership for God knows how long dealing with God knows who? Not me.
And speaking of nonsense, let's get right back into the Carfax and how we were going through this. And I'm just curious, Mr. David Marks, what do you think about mileage rollback? What do you know about that?
Well, to me, I'm thinking because of technology has changed so much in cars. Mechanical odometers are gone. They've been gone for a couple decades now. And with everything electronic, for me, I'm thinking that it's got to be a lot harder for a con artist to deceive the general public with everything running through either the body control module or runs through the instrument cluster, that it's a lot harder for somebody to fake, because you can swap clusters, but guess what? The right mile still pops up because it goes through another module, not the cluster.
Well, let's talk about on Carfax when somebody sees mileage rollback, and this is my opinion. A lot of these are what we call clerical errors. Because, when it's a mileage rollback, so the way that it could happen is it could be the DMV that put the mileage in wrong when you went to register your car, or it could be you're getting your safety or emissions inspection done at one of the Dobbs or one of those places, and they put the
wrong mileage in,
and it looks like a mileage rollback. But let's talk about like real seriousness. Like, there are mileage rollbacks out there, and it has been easier than ever to roll back.
Really?
Yes. Listen up. This is story time. So I have a golden nugget for everybody that's listening, because I had a really good client, iAuto agent, came to us, and very, very smart guy. He winds up buying this. It was a Yukon XL 08, and it looked like it had 134,000 miles, and he was able to buy it for like $8,000, which was a really good deal. And so, at 134,000 miles for $8,000, nice vehicle. He calls me, he goes, Jay, I really think I screwed up. I'm like, well, wait, what happened? He goes, I think I got duped. I'm like, well, what happened? He goes, well, I got this thing, and I didn't do a Carfax, I didn't do a history report, and it's showing that this thing had 234,000 miles on it. Not a great deal anymore. And so
when did he buy it? Because I think it's also part to people know that in the state of Missouri, that if a car is sold in the state of Missouri, if it's less than 10 years old, it's required to have the mileage on the title. If it's more than 10 years old, we're allowed to put exempt.
So it was a Missouri title. This was a whole sting operation. After we found out, don't want to spare everybody the details here, but basically what I found out was, because when I started digging into this, because I'm an automotive advisor here locally on TV, and so I went to the reporter that I worked with, and I'm like, hey, listen, we got a story here, and it was crazy, because you can literally go on Amazon for under $100, sometimes under $50.
What?
This is no joke, Dave. You can buy this little contraption. It plugs into your OBD2 plug-in right underneath your dashboard.
Right.
Plugs right into your computer. And you can literally go on this thing and manipulate the mileage to anything you want.
What?
On any car. I kid you not. And it's not something that takes hours. It's something that takes minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that scary?
Wow. I would have thought with technology, it's even harder to do.
Nope. It's actually easier to do.
No kidding.
So how do you prevent something like that?
Right.
Well, number one, Carfax is a good start, because if a vehicle has been serviced at, again, like we've been talking about, that has a partnership with Carfax, so like Mr. David Marks now does, it's provable that the vehicle that Mr. David Marks had, I sound like an attorney, it's provable that the vehicle that Mr. Marks had on the night of the 18th at 8 p.m., where he serviced that car, is very, very much right.
Yeah.
So what do you do? So what you want to do is, first of all, obviously the Carfax. But there are some other things you can do, and I'm sure you could probably share a few different ones, can't you, Mr. David Martins?
Yeah, I mean, the right trained eye, the right trained technician can spot things that go, something's not right here with the miles. This thing's way too dirty.
Yes.
Or you got to really look at the undercarriage. Is there excessive rust? Does there's this look like wear and tear? And these things, it takes experience. You can't teach it. It takes a trained eye to spot something that this mileage and this condition, something's just not right here. I don't know what, but something's not right here.
Yeah, just be really aware of when you're sitting in that car. Does it really look like it has 134,000 miles? Or does it
how's
really,
the interior? Is the interior immaculate or is it pretty worn?
Yeah, are the buttons all worn off?
Yeah,
look at-
especially on the General Motors product. Those buttons on dashes, they all
Well,
wear. You can't read anything.
Yeah, and that's kind of a common thing. But there are so many things that you can do, and we'll be talking a little bit more about pre-purchase inspections here in a little bit. And we had hit previously at a couple episodes before on lemon law, but one of the things that Carfax is pretty good at, it will say lemon law buyback. It'll let you know if there's actually a buyback on that vehicle. And what that means is a manufacturer had to buy back that vehicle because that person had so many problems in a certain amount of time. And I was just doing a speaking presentation today, and it's kind of like winning the lottery. That's about the best chance you have of a manufacturer buying back a vehicle. Let me tell you, it just doesn't happen. And if you see a lemon law buyback on a Carfax, and I'm telling you, they're here locally in St. Louis, they're nationwide, and people are buying, these dealers are buying them from the auction at pennies on the dollar. Stay away from it. Don't buy it. I'm telling you.
Those are things for guys like me to buy, not the general public.
Let's go to salvage title.
Ooh.
So salvage title. So it's very interesting because we prospect cars all the time, that people are selling, private owners, you name it. And I remember we reached out to this guy, and he had a really, really nice car. It was a higher end luxury car. It's like, man, this looks really, really good. And we're asking him, is there anything wrong? No, it's in perfect condition. Once we had that VIN, we were able to run a history report, and that we do Carfax and AutoCheck, and you'll learn here in a second what AutoCheck is. But we did a Carfax on that darn thing, and it was a salvage rebuilt title.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, literally, I'm telling you, be aware. These things are being passed around. I don't believe in those types of cars. It is about the worst possible thing. And they may say, well, it was a salvage title, not because of an accident, but because it had hail damage. And that is possible. But that's where you also have to realize a salvage title is worth about 50% of what a normal vehicle is worth. So if it's worth $20,000, then your vehicle is now worth $10,000 if it's salvage title. So if somebody tries to sell you it, I wouldn't buy a salvage title, frankly. That'd be just me.
I have.
Yeah, but you're more of experienced, and I just don't think for the average person that it's a smart move, depending on a lot of things.
Well, then too, I bought a salvage vehicle off the State Farm salvage sale that had hail damage. I bought a pickup truck, and one it's illegal for Missouri dealers to sell a salvage vehicle. I had to get it retitled, but when I sold it, I didn't have any problem selling it.
Right.
And I got what I paid for it. Because people didn't have a problem with hail, but here's the kicker is when people called me about it, then they called their insurance company. They'd call me back, say, I can't buy it because my insurance company won't give me full coverage for what I paid, what you want for it.
And financing too. The banks will turn away salvage titles unless they're clean.
So eventually somebody came and bought it. I got what I wanted for it, but I had to sit on it a little bit because nobody had a problem because I could prove it was hail damage. But, once it came to the insurance, that was a killing point.
Let's also talk about multiple fixes. But before we do that, I wanted to actually, if you're just joining us, let's thank our sponsors. We're talking about Carfax or Mythbusters Carfax Part 2. We're talking about how to look at a Carfax, make an educated decision, and know that the potential pitfalls that you could run into. And we don't want you to make a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 mistake. So before I forget, I wanted to thank our sponsors, iAutoAgent.com. They're real estate agents for cars. There's no cost to sell a car with them. They literally handle every aspect of the sale, and the buyers program that they have is incredible. They help you buy a car nationwide, new, used, everything. You don't pay them unless you approve the deal. And Mr. David Marks with Quality Auto STL, trusted services with no surprises. And if you're just joining us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button in the right corner, the notification bell. And if you want to be notified of all of our podcasts, and if you want to watch us live on Facebook, just click the join group button and you can join our group on Facebook, the Auto Authorities Podcast. We would love to have you. And if you didn't hear in the very beginning, we do have a special gift. If you type in the word car and text it to 57838, that's car to 57838, you can buy a book that we wrote on how to buy a car without the nonsense, all the steps that you need to take so you don't have to spend the 4 to 7 hours at the dealer. And let's get right back into this, Mr. David Marks. Let's talk about the multiple fixes for the problem. This is a big one, and I think that a lot of people overlook this. They see a clean Carfax, there's no accidents, but what about multiple fixes? How important is that to you if you're buying a car?
To me, it would depend on what the fix is, because I don't care what emblems on the front of it. They're all known for something. However, if we've talked about, I think, if the AC keeps getting serviced or if the transmission keeps getting serviced and the vehicle isn't, let's say, known for that, well, that's a red flag.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I like to do is, like, if it says like air conditioning service, in the month of December, and then January it said air conditioning. Well, it wouldn't say air conditioning service. It would say heater service, whatever it is, especially if it's something major like that, you really want to be paying attention to that. And then of course they unload their car once it keeps saying that. It's a major red flag, and just watch that stuff. Let's talk about accidents. And if you see an accident, I'm just curious on how you feel about this, because I know how I feel. If you see an accident, would it deter you from buying that vehicle? Yes or no?
No.
Why?
It depends on the accident. And, it depends on, where it was and the severity. Like a front end collision, front ends are a lot easier to rebuild than rear ends, especially on front wheel drive unibody cars. It's one piece in the back. So if they got to fix a quarter pounder, that's welded in, then it's sanded, then it's painted. But rear ends, where you got fenders, bumpers, core supports, radiators, all that stuff unbolts and bolts back on. That's a lot easier to rebuild and put back correctly than a rear end. So a front end wouldn't bother me as bad as a rear end, just because of how cars are built. And I don't care what it is, because the front ends are all built the same. It's all bolted together. It's all nuts and bolts.
Well, the scary thing is the car that doesn't show an accident, that has had an accident. I want to tell you a story. These really high-end cars, and when there is an accident on a high-end car, it will affect the value of the vehicle, point blank. It's very important that if you're buying a vehicle, to know what that accident was. But what's even scarier is when it shows no accident and that vehicle has been in an accident. And the way that you know that is, how would people determine that, Mr. David?
Well, it takes a trained eye to really look at the body lines and make sure they match. Now, a really good bodyman can make it look like it's never been in an accident. And I know a couple. It's really hard to tell that this car was touched after they get done with it.
Right.
But if it's just who knows who body shop, it's not going to be perfect. The only time they really get them perfect is on the assembly line because they're mass produced and they got processes and procedures that make them perfect.
I'm gonna share a few things that when it comes to looking over cars, I'm just gonna share some stuff that the average consumer can do this on their own. You don't have a trained eye. Simply open the hood, look underneath the hood. If you do not see a VIN sticker on that fender on each side, chances are it has probably been replaced. That doesn't mean it's been in an accident, but then you can also look at the parts on the car and do they look newer than other parts? Second thing, look at the hood. Is there a tag on the hood? And when you go to the back of the hood and you run your finger along the back side of the hood, right where the windshield is, if it doesn't feel completely smooth and you can feel like a little bit of roughness, chances are that hood's been repaired. Does it mean it's a bad car? Absolutely not. But we're going to talk in a second about PPI, which stands for pre-purchase inspection. And this is right up Mr. David Marks' alley. But I really want to try to protect our listeners from these types of things. Open up the door on the driver's side. Look for the VIN tag. Open up the door on the driver's side in the rear door. VIN tag. Open up the trunk. Look for the VIN tag. Look for those types of things. And then you can even see, would you agree, Mr. David Marks, when you're looking at the way that the panels line up, if you're looking at the hood on one side and there's a bigger gap on one side of the hood and the other side, it's not lined up, that's a very good inclination that it's been in an accident or it's been repaired.
Here's what we've seen is aftermarket manufacturers for fenders, they'll have their parts sticker where you could clearly see it. The OE, there's no stickers.
But explain when you use these, what is OE?
OE stands for original equipment. And if you really want to get creative, look at the bolts, how the fender bolts to the body.
Yeah.
If you can see gaps around it, well, that bolt's been loosened. So why was it loosened? That may not mean it's a bad car, like you said, but it requires a little bit further investigation because if it hasn't been an accident, we don't take off fenders for mechanical repair. We don't have to. Cars aren't designed to be built where we got to remove a fender to do work. So the only time we take a thing off is a hood to pull an engine out.
Right.
And we're not going to put them back 100% perfect. We do our best, but we're not a body shop. We're a mechanical repair shop. So that's not on top of our mind.
Yeah.
As long as the thing closes, we're good. That's all we care about. We're not checking body lines. So
let's talk about when you have like an inclination that the vehicle has been in an accident. This is what my recommendation would be, is get a pre-purchase inspection. I think you should do a pre-purchase inspection on anything, but the moment that you feel like you have a red flag, and then you ask them, say, hey, can I take this to my mechanic so they can take a look at it? And if I like it, I'll buy it. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, and then if they're not willing to let you take it, just walk away.
I totally agree. And have them drive it. Have them drive it to your mechanic if it's a private owner. If it's a dealership, most likely they will let you take it. And most dealerships will. They're fine, because they're going through it themselves. And they're like, hey, if you find something wrong, they're not saying necessarily they're going to fix it. But they're like, yeah, that's fine. You can do that. Any legitimate dealership will let you do that.
Yep.
Let's get into this in the time that we have remaining, because I think this is really important. Let's talk about AutoCheck. AutoCheck is like, okay, so you have Carfax and then you have AutoCheck. And AutoCheck is kind of the competitor to Carfax. It is the competitor. It is there's less of a cost. Carfax is running about $40 per run. I can't remember what AutoChecks run now. They're probably $15, $20.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But it's important to understand what AutoCheck is, because not every dealer uses Carfax. They also use AutoCheck. What's your experience with AutoCheck?
My experience is, buying out of the auctions, they give us a free AutoCheck, which just tells us owners' accidents. It'll tell us if there's, a mileage discrepancy or anything, title problems. I've seen AutoCheck where it says this and Carfax says this, and I'm wondering which one do I believe?
Well, and that is a good one right there. So not only are we going to share with you how to do that, But I want to talk about, so when you're when you have an AutoCheck, one of the things I really like about it is connected with Manheim Auction. They're very heavily connected. And when you have an AutoCheck, they get their information from different sources than the Carfax. So sometimes the AutoCheck will actually pop up something different than what a Carfax is actually popping up. So you have to look at, so sometimes Carfax will say 2 owners. Sometimes AutoCheck will say 1 owner. And Carfax, even though it probably only has 1 owner, they consider it an owner because the person leased the car and then they bought the car after the lease. So they consider that 2 owners.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. It's only been 1 owner. So what I like about AutoCheck also, and this is a big one, they announce, so when they go through the auction, and that's where a lot of these dealers buy these cars, it'll say announced as frame damage. And when they announce it as frame damage at that auction, you better believe it's going to show up on the AutoCheck. But it doesn't show up on the Carfax 9 times out of 10. And they're getting better. They are getting better. I mean, back in the day when I first, started playing around, like really, really understanding Carfax back in the early 2000s, Carfax is really, really off. I mean, really, really off. And now it's getting better. But by having a like AutoCheck, it does give that perspective. Like, okay, now I'm looking at 2 history reports, and they get their information from different sources, because AutoCheck is not as detailed as Carfax. It is just not. They haven't spent the time. They haven't spent the money to make partnerships. But there are things on AutoCheck that are very, very important. No doubt about it.
Wow.
So the question is what happens if you own a car, and we talked about this with Carfax, what happens if you own a car and AutoCheck is wrong?
Ooh.
You have to dispute it, don't you? And I'm going to give you the formula right now on how to do it. You simply go to and take out your pen and paper. This is learning time. If you take out your pen and paper and you go to autocheck.com/vehicle history/contact, you can fill out a form. You can state your case so they can remove that, because that will definitely play a factor in your value of your vehicle. And especially every buyer that's an educated buyer is going to want some type of history report on the vehicle that you're selling. They want to know that they're not buying a lemon. They just want to know. And AutoCheck is a lot of dealerships are starting to use that now instead of Carfax, because basically the cost of it is about half or less for AutoCheck than a Carfax. So dealers are like,
wow,
I'm sick of paying Carfax. I mean, I know really big dealers here in St. Louis right now. They will not use Carfax.
Wow. That Carfax, man, he's pretty expensive on TV.
Oh, yeah. You're paying for all those commercials. I mean, you're paying $40 a run. Like, that's a lot of freaking money. But it's also a lot of money if you make a $20,000 mistake because you buy something. Yeah. So I think we leave it at that. And, you have any other closing remarks, Mr. David Marks?
No, I mean, I guess the only thing I could emphasize is, get that PPI and it's be very aware of who you're buying a vehicle from.
Yes. Pay for it. It's worth it. Again, it saves you $20,000 to $30,000 from making a $20,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 mistake. I say that all day long. And the moment that you move away and you trust somebody, that's when you're going to lose. Get somebody like Mr. David Marks with Quality Auto STL, and the used car detective. He'll find it and he'll let you know.
Yep.
And I think we leave on that, and we talk to everybody the next week. We've got a really, really good show. Winter maintenance musts. If you're in a cold area right now, you better listen because we got some good stuff. All right. Well, we'll see everybody next week.
All right. Bye.